We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Siman Kuf Nun Gimel, the Halachot of Bet Knesset, and we are up to Seif Tet on Daf Lamed Chet Amud Aleph of the regular prints of Mishnah Berura. Maran writes, when you sell Bet Knesset, if you are a private shul that's not dedicated to the entire Klal Yisrael with all of their travels and coming in and so on, then you could do anything that you want with the money aside from 4 different usages that are considered disrespectful. What are the 4? The 4 are, you cannot, when the person that buys it, even though that he could make a storage house out of it, he could make a company out of it, he could make anything, a dira, a house, but he cannot make 4 things out of this shul. A, you cannot make it into a bathroom. B, you cannot make it to a mikveh. C, you cannot make it to a public bathhouse. And D, finally, you cannot make it the bursiki, a place that was dedicated to processing leather, which is pretty dirty and considered one of the more rejected jobs in the society, because they would have to soak the leather inside a solution of acidic solution, and it would smell up the entire place in a horrible way. So that's considered a very disrespectful usage as well. Those are the 4 things. Even though that it's private shul, and now you're allowed to use it for regular usages, but these 4 you cannot do. Unless, of course, the Shiv'at Tuv'ei Ha'ir, the 7 elders who are in charge of the community, got together, and they gathered the whole town there, and they said, okay, well, we're selling this. And everyone agreed to sell it. Then you could do anything you want from that house. The buyer could even turn it into a public bathhouse, a mikveh, bathroom. All of those usages are mutar. That's what Maran says over here in Seif Tet. And the Mishnah Berura says that the same thing is if you have even larger cities, but when they started building the shul, they made a tanai. They made a condition that they want this to be dependent on one person's decision. They said this is the president, the CEO of the shul, and we are building this shul al tanai on condition that every decision that will be made, it will be this. It's like a private shul. This person is the owner. So that becomes also equivalent to this as well. Now, this that he cannot sell it to merchatz, to those 4 items that we mentioned. These are ugly, distasteful, rejected, and disrespectful usages, and therefore you cannot do it. You can't do it in a place that once upon a time used to be a Bet Knesset. So says the Mishnah Berura, even if the shul was a landscape, or was a earthquake, and the whole thing fell through, the whole shul became like a pile of rubble, and now you want to use it afterwards to something, even though that you're rebuilding the whole structure. It's not that you're using the same structure of the shul and people remember this as a shul. Even if you're rebuilding the whole thing, it looks different, it is different, still would be prohibited, would be asur. Now, just like it's asur to make a bet merchas in the place that used to be Bet Knesset, it's also asur to make a Bet Knesset in a place that used to be a public bathhouse. It goes both ways, writes the Kaf HaChaim, unless you destroy the structure of the Bet Merchas and you make a Bet Knesset from that already will be different, that will be mutar. But if it's possible to build it in a different place, then it's even better to build it in a different place. Now, if you already transformed the shul, and when you sold it, the guy that bought it made one of these 4 things there, then Chacham Ovadia says you still have to destroy the structure you built because it's disrespectful. You can't, even b'di'evet, Ovadia says is no good. Now, We still have to speak about churches that turn into Bet Knesset. We haven't spoken about that because that both ways really is a question. My yeshiva used to be in downtown when they built it over 90 years ago, and when they wanted to move to their current place, the only buyer that wanted to buy it for a proper price was a church, right? They wanted to buy it for twice the price that the potential buyer wanted it, and it was built in a way that would be, beneficial for them. And the question was, can you sell a Bet Midrash Yeshiva to a church, the Bet Avodah Zarah? Right? We have to discuss that. And the reverse of it is what happens more often over here, that the churches who go out of commission, they want to sell them, and sometimes yeshivas, here you have a number of them in this town. The famous Yeshiva Gdola is a former church structure. The many of the shuls that probably the largest Sephardi shul in town is a church structure. Maybe it was different because it was a church of Scientology. It's not really considered Avodah Zarah there because it's just a sophisticated method of fundraising from rich and famous. And it's a whole history of itself with FBI and so on and so forth. But that's a fascinating topic. But nevertheless, even if it would be considered a Bet Avodah Zarah, we have to discuss whether or not that becomes mutar or not. But for now, these four are considered the things that you can't do, unless again you sell it in front of Shivat Tuvei Ha'ir, in front of the 7 elders of the community. B'ma'amad anshe ha'ir, in presence of the people, then you could do whatever you want with that structure. V'hu adin she'al yedei shivat tuvei ha'ir, b'ma'amad anshe ha'ir mutar le'hotzi adamim lekol ma sheyirtzu, afilu ledvar chor. You could do anything you want with the money in that scenario, as long as it's of course used for the sorchet tzibur. Afilu elu ha'arba'a dvarim, ayem be'beur halacha dedin ze lo brira. So the Chafetz Chaim in Berura halacha writes that even if the 7 elders sold it, it's not so pashut that you could do whatever you want. Now, Kaf HaChaim says that Maran is correct. He passes like Maran Shulchan Aruch, that if you did it with the 7 elders in presence of the people of the city, then, meaning in public arena, was discussed by everyone, knew about it, and so on, was the consent of the people and the elders. Then the Kaf says halacha is like Maran Shulchan Aruch, that you could do pretty much anything that you want to do with it within the realm of Sorchet Tzibur. And the Kaf HaChaim writes, that if the 7 elders sell it, it will be even mutar for larger cities. It's not only for Kfarim, for smaller private Batei Knesset, but even if you have a New York City, Manhattan, but you have Shivat Tuvei Ha'ir, and you have a public arena that people are, ask for their consent, then you could do that even there, writes the Kaf HaChaim. So says Maran in the next Seif Yud, Yesh Omrim Diachid B'Shelo, Afilu Sefer Torah Mutar Lemochlo. If you own a Sefer Torah, right, it's private, you own it. You own a Sefer Torah, there are those who say that you could sell it and you could do whatever you want with it. It's your money. It's not dedicated. It's like a Sefer, a regular Sefer. If I get a new copy of this Sefer and now I want to sell this on eBay or put it on one of the community chats and sell it, well, I have to be careful to go buy another Sefer with the money. No, not necessarily. So if I have a private Sefer Torah, maybe it will be the same thing. Says Maran, there are those who actually hold that a private Sefer Torah has the same din. That's the Rosh. Rabbeinu Asher holds that way, says Maran in the Tur and Maran in Bet Yosef. Kol shelo hikdisho likrot barabim. So long as it was your private Sefer Torah. It's not that you read in the minyan, but it's your private Sefer Torah that you open. Many people, al pi Ari HaKadosh, they say there's Shnai Mikra ve'Echad Targum from actual Sefer Torah, right? they sit there by the Aron, and they go through. You have to, of course, know your ta'amim, and you have to be a proper Baal Koreh. But they read Shnai Mikra, and they have Targum next to them. They do Shnai Mikra and Targum. So if you bought a Sefer Torah for that matter, or for just having it as a mitzvah of owning a Sefer Torah, the 613th mitzvah of the Torah, the last and final mitzvah of the Torah, is the mitzvah of writing yourself a Sefer Torah. So imagine if a person has a Sefer Torah, but it was never dedicated to the tzibur. In that case, you could. There are those who say you could sell it. So that's Yesh Omrim. That's the Rabbeinu Asher. Ve Yesh Omrim, says Maran, and there are those who disagree with that. Now you already know that Yesh Ve Yesh, halacha ki Yesh Batra. Maran, when he brings two Yesh Omrims, halacha is like the second Yesh Omrim. So what's the second Yesh Omrim, which is the Shita of the Rambam, of course. So it says, Maran, Yesh Omrim she, יש מי שאוסר, אלא אם כן, ללמוד תורה או לישא אישה. That has the same halachot that you only could sell it for a hierarchy that's higher, which is for learning Torah or for getting married, for paying for your wedding expenses, the bare minimum expenses, and that would be mutar. So that's halacha, like the Rambam, like the second Yesh Omrim. Now, the Yesh Mi She'oser, says the Shulchan Aruch, if you don't have Kedushat Rabim, because there's a private Sefer Torah, then the Rosh writes that it's a private Sefer, you could sell it for whatever you want. And nowadays, writes the Kaf HaChaim, nowadays is a little different, because we don't have this concept of giving a Sefer Torah to Bet Knesset and then selling it, right? And therefore, you should be machmir that if you gave Sefer Torah to the people to read from it, then you should not sell it anymore. Even though that you didn't give it as a matana to Bet Knesset, you made a Sefer Torah, you gave it to a shul as a loan. So okay, the majority of people do this nowadays. Those who have private Sefer Torahs, they don't have a minyan at home, so they lend it to the shul, and many of them they move it around when there's a new minyan that starts, a new shul that needs a Sefer Torah, they'll give it to them as a loan now. So if you do that, that already is dedication of that Sefer Torah to the public, even though you own it. You didn't give it to the shul, but you dedicated it to be read Barabim, that already does it, that you cannot sell it afterwards, right? Now, if you gave a Sefer Torah to the people to read, and the guy died, the donor died, right? So what happens then? The Kaf HaChaim writes, in that case, just like he did not have the zchut to sell it when he was alive, the Yorshim, the kids, also don't get to sell it after his death. Either it's something that was dedicated to the shul, you could only sell it now to use it for higher hierarchies of Kedusha, as we discussed already in the previous parts of the Siman. Now, Rambam's Shita is to be Mahmir, that even your private Sefer Torah, that you didn't dedicate it to the tzibur, you just bought, you bought it to have a mitzvah of Sefer Torah, Atakitvu Lachem et Hashira Azot, and you kept it in your Bet Midrash. It was never publicly read from, right? You use it for Shnai Mikra v'Chatargum, right? So it says the Rambam is, and that's the psak of Maran, that's the psak of Kaf HaChaim, and that's the psak of Ben Ish Chai in Sefer Torah Lishma. We assume he wrote it, and from Maran Chida, maybe see like that as well. But comes along Hacham Obadia alav shalom, and he says that the Ikar is like the Rosh. So it's very interesting, because here you have Yesh v'Yosh Omrim, and Obadia says the Ikar is like the Rosh, not like the Rambam. That a Sefer Torah v'Yachid, if you own a Sefer Torah and you never gave it to the Tzibur, even as lending, you always kept it in your home, right? Like I know people who still have a Sefer Torah at home and have not dedicated it yet. They're in Eretz Yisrael, they found a good deal years ago, and they bought a Sefer Torah. I know people who actually have it, they still have it at home, right? And Some of them have not been finished at the end of it. Some of them have, right? So you have a Sefer Torah like that at home. You learn from it maybe, but it's never been read in the Tzibur. Then Chamadia is Mekel, Meikar Adin, that you could sell a Sefer Torah v'yachid. Now, to give a Sefer Torah b'matana, the Ben Shchai writes is mutar. And if you don't have a Sefer Torah, and the only Sefer Torah, let's say it's a small cities, this happens. They don't have their own Sefer Torah. It's expensive to buy a Sefer Torah, right? So if you have a very small neighborhood, right? Like, they wanted to make a minyan in Bel Air, right? So, there are Jews there, but it's no real shul necessarily in that way that's close by. So you want to make a minyan. There's enough Sefer Torah. There's no Sefer Torah. So if you have a situation like that, and the only Sefer Torah that they could read from is a private Sefer Torah somebody has in their house, right? So in that case, he doesn't want to give it to the people. The Ben Ish Chai writes in Torah Lishma, it writes that it's mutar, the Yachid should sell it to the Rabbim, right? And he do it b'havla'ah. In other words, what he should do is he should sell the tik, the cover of Sefer Torah, right? And should add on the price of the tik, the money of the Sefer Torah as well, and the Sefer Torah itself you give it b'matana. Right? This way, you're not selling it, you're giving it b'matana, but you're charging, it's a legal loophole. You're charging $50,000 for the case, and you're giving the Sefer Torah on top of it b'matana. It says, whoever buys the tik, I'll give him a big matana as well. Yalla. And that's how the Torah Lishma sets it up. And that's our Seif Gimel in that way. So let's try to do one more piece over here. That Lilmot Torah, you could sell a Sefer Torah in order to learn Torah or get married. That's what you said at the end. Hainu lehitparnes b'tamav berevach. It means that if you want to sit and learn Torah, doesn't mean to go hire a Rebbe. It doesn't have to be like that. Even if you have a Rebbe, but you don't have Parnasah, you want to sit in the Kolel, you want to have support for your family to pay rent and for food, to stay in Kolel one more year to learn. The question is, I could support myself one more year instead of taking a loan out from the government or from my college. I could just sell the Sefer Torah that I have. Right? When I was a rich man, I had a Sefer Torah, and I could technically sell it and support myself in Kollel for another 2 years. I'm not paying for the teacher, for the yeshiva, but it's my expenses. You'll say, well, maybe expenses of life is chol. No, it's mutar. That's considered part of supporting yourself into learning, and that's mutar. Now, how about if you want to sell the Sefer Torah to buy a set of Shas and Poskim, you want to learn Torah. So I have a Humash already. I don't need a Sefer Torah kasher. I could sell that for, tremendous money and buy an entire Sifriya of all the Sfarim that I need. Otzar HaChochmah and Bar Ilah and all the regular Sfarim that I need. Is it mutar or not? So the Pri Megadim writes that Sarich Iyun is not so pashut if you could do that, because the reason that we sell Sefer Torah for Talmud Torah is because learning Torah is bigger. Gadol Talmud shemeviali de maaseh, says the Gemara in Kiddushin Daf Mem, right? The Torah brings you to doing, and therefore, imken huadin efshar dechaygav nami deefshar lilmod belo sfarim. So maybe here also is mutar because you can't learn without Sfarim. So maybe it's mutar. Maybe not, because it's not really learning Torah, it's just assets. And it's assets that are less in Kedusha than the Sefer Torah. But on the other hand, maybe this is a tag along with what's called limud Torah. Just like you could pay rent to stay in Kollel, you could also buy Sfarim, because without Sfarim you can't really learn. There's a midrash that says, "Le'echad magiach chokhmato shel adam le'lan she'yat Sfarav magiim." It's a midrash that says your chokhmah is assessed based on how many Sfarim you have. If you have enough Sfarim, how are you going to learn? Right? When you have a lot of Sfarim, then you have you could expand your horizons of Chokhmah to a whole new level, and that concludes Seif Yud. Bezrat Hashem, we'll start Seif Yud Aleph in the days to come. Hazaku Baruch.